firstly, are there any new injuries, any new problems after Crystal Palace?
I'm just trying to rack my brains. No, what, bumps and bruises, normal. Hopefully nothing too big to talk about.
You've been back playing competitively for just over a month now, and in that time you've picked up some good results. You've reached the semi-finals of the Cup. You're not conceding goals, but maybe you would have liked to have scored one or two more. Could you just give us an assessment of how things have gone over the last few weeks, generally?
Yeah, I think we've played well. I think the general performances have been of a very high level. I think that's the first thing you look for. How's the team functioning when you're in my position? Are we seeing what we're executing in training? Are we seeing that on the pitch? Yes, we are. Is it perfect? No. Will it ever be? No. You're always looking to improve. And yeah, of course, we'd like more goals, but I can't fault the effort of the players.
The semi-finals of the League Cup, then you're away at St Mary's first. Is that the way you'd have preferred it, away first and then at home at St James's in the second leg?
To be honest, just being in the semi-final was all we cared about. Beating Leicester was our big priority, and then you just take whatever is in front of you. We'll take how it's panned out. We know what we've got to do. It's very tough to deliver that. This is going to be two really, really difficult games for us. We're under no illusions of that, and starting with the away leg will be very difficult. I'm sure it'll be a very good atmosphere. It's always a tough place to play, but we look forward to the challenge, and we're trying to embrace the pressure that we face and try and get the players to enjoy what's ahead.
Since you last played Southampton, since you won there at the beginning of November, there's been a change of manager, and they've brought in a couple of players this month already as well. What differences have you noticed in Southampton under Nathan Jones?
Yeah, subtle differences. I'd say not huge transition. I think Ralph had his way of playing, Nathan's got his. That there are subtle differences. But as I say, not drastic changes. Nathan I admire greatly as a manager. I think he's done very, very well in his career. Looking at his time at Luton, what job he did. He's now gone to a new club, and he's looking to implement his ideas there. So we know with the new manager and new players coming in, it's a different challenge to the one we faced under Ralph. And I think with the cup game as well, I think it's just a chance for both teams to get away from the Premier League and the pressures that brings. And that will be an interesting dynamic going into these two games.
It's only the club's second League Cup semi-final. How aware are you of the significance of getting to this stage, given the record in this competition over the years?
Yeah, we're delighted to be where we are. But the semi-final itself isn't enough. I don't think it's enough for anybody. I think you go into these games, and to say you got to a semi-final means nothing. Ultimately, you want to get one step further. And I know the players feel the same way. Me and my coaching team feel passionately about it, that we want to make the final. But we have to navigate these two games. They're going to be very difficult, as I say.
Last couple of things. You'll have just over 3,000 fans at St Mary's. You probably would have been able to take a lot more if the tickets had been available. It's a long trip midweek. I'm sure you'll be wanting to acknowledge just the effort and the commitment from the supporters again to back you on Tuesday night.
As always, the support is unwavering. It's fully committed. We love to see the away support we get when we're driving to the stadium. To see the passion and the enthusiasm for the team is always uplifting for us, and I've got no doubt the away end will be absolutely bouncing as it was there when we went in the league.
Finally, we haven't seen too much of Ryan Fraser in recent weeks. You said a little while ago that he wasn't injured. If he isn't still injured, how does he find a way back into the team and in your squad?
No, he's not injured. He's training. He's just got to keep training well, keep training hard. Yeah, and he's a valued member of the squad. I know Ryan better than anybody, and I know what he's capable of. So I'd love to see him back in a Newcastle shirt.
Thank you.
Okay, Graham, top spot.
Just wondering, Eddie, both you and Nathan spent quite a bit of time on the South Coast. Do you know each other at all?
No, we don't actually. Bizarrely, no. We've had encounters together, but we don't know each other with any depth. Definitely from my side to Nathan, there's a huge respect there. I've managed in the lower leagues, and I know how difficult that can be and the challenges you face. And I think sometimes it's underestimated how difficult a journey that is and how much you learn through the years. And he's he's done so well at a club that punched above its weight for a long, long time, and he was the driving force behind that. So now going to Southampton with really tight, committed squad and a really well-run club, it'll be interesting to see how quickly they lift upwards.
Do you see a lot of similarities between the job he's now facing that, to a certain extent, you faced when you first came here, and also when you went to Bournemouth as well?
Similarities in terms of league position. Beyond that, I don't know, because I don't know the inner workings of Southampton. But certainly when you go into a club in that difficult position, there's several challenges that you face, and you need to get the players on side and try and lift confidence. And he's certainly done that in the cup competitions. Their form has been very good. And can't underestimate anybody that's just beaten Manchester City at home. And the manner in which they beat Manchester City as well. It wasn't, defensive display. It was very front foot. It was some really good football played. So that's why I say these games in isolation they're very difficult, and we're going to need to be at our best to make sure we can progress.
Always disappointed to get knocked out of the FA Cup, of course, but in one respect, it's worked quite handily in your favour, in that you've got a blank weekend between your two games against Southampton. How important is that?
Yeah, it's not something we wanted or planned for, or in any way now look and think, oh, that's a good thing. We wanted to be in the FA Cup. We did everything we could to get through. We didn't achieve that, so we just have to make the best of the situation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Eddie, one tie from Wembley, something a generation of Newcastle United fans haven't heard. How exciting is that for you guys to be involved in it? And it feels very much like a double header, a tie for the supporters, this one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think we want it to be a tie for the supporters. The only way we can guarantee that is by performing at our best. I think the away game will be a really good spectacle for the fans that travel. It's on telly, obviously, so everyone will get a chance to watch the game, and then the home game will be a very, very special night, I think. I think our job is to make sure we're in a good position going into that tie. We're desperate for the next step, but we have to take our mind off that really and focus on the process and the job. And the job is to go to Southampton and perform well.
And there's obviously been some big games this season, some big evenings. The support, particularly at the cup games, is felt even better. It's felt louder at St James's Park. Would you put this down as arguably your biggest game of the season?
I think it's a really special game. Yeah, difficult to categorise where it stands in the season. It's always someone else's job, I think. For me, we understand the importance of these two games we have coming up in our season as well, because we always want to try and keep the positive momentum and positive outlook and something exciting for the future on the horizon while competing as hard as we have done in the Premier League. So they can be two very special games. And
it's an unusual circumstance playing the double header. I guess you guys as managers don't do that or be involved in games like that too often. How does that alter the mindset going into it?
Yeah, I'm not sure it does. I think it's probably something for you to speak about and to sort of dissect. I think the interesting thing is you've got the two sets of players going against each other very quickly, so that there you get to understand and know your opposition maybe better. We've played them already in the league, so I think there will be that understanding of their strengths and weaknesses, and vice versa from their side. They will understand our strengths and weaknesses. So I think that makes it an interesting two games.
Obviously, just a week to go now of the transfer window. Is it proving at all any kind of distraction with so many big games that you're involved in, having that in the background, and obviously having lost Chris Wood last week and leaving you a little bit short there?
I think from my side, I try to sort of shift my focus from one thing to another. I think that's one of my strengths. So my first priority is always the games, and is always the players that we have here. They're always my priority. So training and the game preparation and making sure we don't take any shortcuts in any of that. And then once that is done, then we turn to the transfer market and making sure we identify the players that we feel can come into the group and make us stronger.
And without asking you any names, because I know you won't go into it, but are the club making any inroads since the departure of Chris Wood last week?
I think the club are trying, and that's where we are. So there's no news to give you, and no positive news to give you, but certainly there's a lot of work going on.
Cheers, thanks.
Jeff, just to come back briefly to the weekend, I know you don't go chasing records, but 15 Premier League games without defeat. How proud are you of having that record?
Yeah, really proud of the group, everyone, the staff, players, for being as consistent as we have been, that this league is so difficult that it takes one off day to end that like that. So to go 15 games is hugely satisfying achievement. I think the disappointing thing is after the game on Saturday, it didn't feel that way. It felt like a defeat because I think the expectations are so high internally, externally, and we're very motivated as a group that we were just disappointed with the actual result, not necessarily the performance. So I think we need to keep perspective at all times of how well the players are doing and make sure they don't feel any burden or any negativity going into now a totally different shift in focus.
And obviously you want to win tomorrow, but is avoiding defeat, is that a decent result in the first leg in a time like this?
I don't think we'll approach it that way. Our mindset isn't conditioned to do that now. We're going to win. As in, we're going to try and win, not we're going to win. We're going to try and win in our preparation.
And
Had to make that clear.
I think you were born the last time Newcastle reached the League Cup final. Does that give you a sort of sense of history of it?
Yeah, it's a long time, and we're desperate to try and change that. But yeah, I think looking too far back and going too historical, I think at this moment probably doesn't serve us well. I think the players know. I think they'll read enough. So it's just to make sure that we're in the present moment, really.
Sure. Are you right there?
Eddie, you've played a very strong team at Crystal Palace. Are you in the cup? You've rotated a couple of times this season. I guess you're going to go full strength again in this one.
Well, we'll see. I think I've got a strong squad to pick from, and we'll always make decisions on individuals, form, fitness, how they feel. And try and pick a team we think can win.
And the fact that you played Bruno at Crystal Palace underlines how important you saw that game as.
Well, yeah, I mean, Premier League is hugely important to us. And Bruno said he felt 100% fit to play. The medical team were absolutely convinced he was okay, and I think his performance sort of showed that. So it was an amazing recovery from someone who I think initially was concerned about the injury that he picked up against Fulham. But no, we're really, really pleased that he came through the game fine.
Yeah, just on your goalkeepers, we've seen reports of Carabao could go to Howe. But I guess you're going to need him for these 2 legs.
Yeah, I think that there'll be no one going out before tomorrow. So we assess the squad on a daily basis, depending on what's happening. There's lots of noise and lots of different things going on, but no, certainly want to keep the squad intact.
And Anthony Gordon is a name that's been heavily pushed towards the media. I'm just wondering if you've got any remarks on that.
No comment on any players.
Okay.
Thank you.
George?
In the 90s and early 2000s, there were all those near misses for the club, and it always felt like there was a sort of huge pressure. There was that weight of history bearing down. Is that something that you feel at all now that the club are getting closer, or is it something that has been later the rest of it because the weight's been so long since then?
I don't necessarily. I feel leading the club is something that I don't take lightly. But I don't feel burdened by any external pressure. I don't think I can live like that. So I understand the importance of the games to everybody, me included. But I think I try and approach the games in the same way. Be very analytical in the build-up. Understand our opponent. Understand how we're going to play. Trust our training. Trust our work. And then you sit back and watch the results of that work in the game. And I think you have to have that mindset where you're not too emotionally involved. You're looking at it clearly from a football perspective.
Ian?
Morning, Eddie. You're saying that reaching the semi-final isn't what you want. Is reaching a semi-final an achievement in itself, bearing in mind this club's bowing spot?
I think it's a dangerous thing for me to answer that with a yes, because then I think it sets maybe a dangerous ceiling on where we're at mentally. I think we are proud to be where we are, but we want more. And I think all season the players have shown that mentality themselves. So they've never settled, they've never been pleased with doing anything other than winning. So I think that's a really healthy place to be. So Saturday we were disappointed that we didn't achieve our objective, and now we move on to another game where we're desperate to win.
I think in the past you've said there are no ceilings on your own ambitions here?
I don't think they can. Well, I don't think they can be, because I think if you do put that line, you can never cross it. So I said the same. I've said the same all through my managerial career, that I don't believe in saying you can't achieve things or you can't do things or we're not ready to do this yet. Absolutely not. We're going to the game, try and win, have a really positive approach.
Thank you.
Craig?
Morning, Eddie. You might have to go back to your childhood or your teenage years to answer this, but how have you fared in semi-finals?
That's a loaded question, isn't it, Craig? Because I'm no doubt, I'm sure you've gone through my, maybe not my youth history, but certainly.
I think you're giving me too much credit.
I think you were up last night going, come on, what's he done? No, I think you'd know better than me, probably.
Well,
Nothing.
You've been in playoff semi-finals, but never cup semi-finals?
I don't know. I think, for me, I look at it that in your career, you're always looking to go into experiences and sample things and enjoy the occasion. And you're looking to experience things and then want more of it. So this is going to be a semi-final that we're going to embrace, enjoy, hopefully perform at our best levels. And then I can talk to you about afterwards how that felt.
Can you remember any from when you were a little boy playing in semi-finals at all?
Yeah, well, vaguely. But I don't actually think too much changes. I know people will laugh, and you're playing as a kid. You're playing because you love the game, and you're not necessarily thinking it's a semi-final or it's a final. And I want my players to sort of feel that themselves going into this game. These are the moments that you play as a kid for. These are the moments you start playing football for, because you're desperate to win a trophy, and it's no different whether you're aged 13, 14 or into your 20s.
There were some pictures on social media. You've sort of taken a bit of time out yesterday to go and watch the boys play. Was that a nice distraction? Did you pick up any inspiration on how to score goals?
That's naughty, Craig. That's yeah. No, I always enjoy playing watching my boys play. Tough game actually. They got beat yesterday, so I was consoling him in the car after.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Eddie, you say that part of your job is obviously to split the whole transfer thing from leading the team and everything like that, but obviously there is the interesting dynamic where the second leg of this game falls bang on the end of the window. I know you can kind of never say never what might happen, but ideally, would you like to avoid a scenario where things are happening and players are potentially coming in or out on the same day that you've got the biggest game of the season?
Yeah, it wasn't lost to me when I saw the game fall on that day. I was like, that's potentially interesting. But I tend to think the manager's role in this is reduced, in the sense that you're not necessarily in control of transfers. You're not in control of transfers. You're hearing second and third hand what's happening. In terms of meeting and greeting players, that can be done by other people. So my focus that day will be solely on the game, and making sure we're as prepared as we can be.
Mark? Eddie, you've been able to, this season, despite some of these big games, play the game rather than the occasion. This one's a really, really big game with a lot of emotion loaded on it. How do you go about maintaining that? And is it because of some of the senior players and the senior names you've got in you?
I definitely think that helps. Their past experiences. You've got full internationals in there. You've got players that have played in a World Cup. You've got title winners within the group. So those experiences are vital. And just that calmness that the senior players will give, hopefully will rub off on everybody. And ultimately, as much as the media will build the game up, it is another game. And I think that's the best way to prepare for it.
Okay, Martin?
Crystal Palace is kind of out of the way. Did today, or has today, felt different coming into work? This is just, the build-up for the semi-final. Has it felt different?
Not from my side, no. Maybe for other people, but from my side, it's coming here, speaking to you. That's normal pre-match build-up. It's watching the opposition, planning training. The processes are exactly the same. It's just you're doing it for a cup game rather than a league game.
But do you feel the pride of having reached the last four domestic?
Yeah, of course we do, and we understand the importance surrounding the game and how everyone will feel. But we just can't go away from what we normally do and how we normally prepare.
And not going back as far as Craig, but was there a period at Bournemouth where last fours of domestic cups was miles and miles away, maybe earlier on in your career there?
As a manager?
Yeah.
Well, no, we reached the quarterfinals twice and we drew Chelsea away, I think, both times. So that sort of ended that dream at that moment. The draws weren't kind to us. So no, we've been close, but we never quite got there. It's nice to go one step further.
Jordan?
Just on the transfer window, you mentioned that for Crystal Palace, like you wanted to sign a player. I was just wondering if you meant someone specifically, you had someone specifically in mind.
No, just a football player.
And from the Crystal Palace game, has it given you a clear idea of where you need to strengthen?
Yeah, I think it's no secret losing Chris was a blow to us, and we're looking not necessarily, as I said in the previous press conference, a like-for-like transfer, but someone that can booster us in the attacking areas.
Miles?
East Saxon Maxim have had their injuries, they've had illness this season. How do you assess their kind of fitness, sharpness, readiness to potentially be starting games over the coming weeks?
I'd say they're both getting there for sure. I think there's different situations. I think Alex, we've needed to be mindful of the fact he hasn't had a lot of training time. As I said, with a lot of games, in between those games you can't train the players to the intensity that you would want to, and that probably Alex is needed. So we've backed off his training and exposed him to the game. But at some stage he will need that training load to get to his very best levels. So we're nursing him in gently. With Alan, Alan's had more training time. He's had more fitness work. So Alan, I think, is in peak physical condition.
Just finally, there was some speculation about Jonjo Shelby sick test. You've said before, hard to see anyone leaving. But when you're looking at your wider squad, I would certainly imagine he's a player you wouldn't be leaving this window.
Yeah, I've been surprised with all the speculation. I've got no idea where that's come from. Certainly not come from us. Jonjo is a very valued member of the squad.
Kieran?
Eddie, has this been a time for big speeches?
I was going to say that I'm not a big speech man, but I think there is times when you need lots of different tools, and a lot of it comes from your gut feel as a manager, what you think the players need at that moment. I'm definitely not a big speech man before a game, because I believe you need to have done that work in your build up to the game. So as a staff, we'll do a lot of our talking in the build up to the game rather than actually on game day. Try and keep the players' heads free so they're able to express themselves without too much noise in their heads. But don't get me wrong, there are times when I've done it, and it all comes down to my gut feel on the day of the game.
I think you said earlier that you can see visibly that the players grasp the situation. Could you just explain that maybe a little bit? Do you feel that hunger that they have to really...
You'll have to remind me what I said.
I think you just said that almost the players don't need reminding of this, but it's a balance for you in treating it like a game, typical game as well. But do you grasp that they have that hunger to really get to that point?
Yeah, I think from the players' perspective, I think they know the size of club they're playing for. They know the want and desire from everyone to be successful around the city. So I don't think I need to remind them of that. And certainly in my conversations with them, they understand the responsibilities they have when playing here. I do think there is, as I said earlier, I touched on it, you want the players to play the game their normal way. So it's a balance between how much you build it up to how much you just let them be normal.
Fine, but just as the training ground seems like it's really taking shape.
Yeah, it's getting there. I think the lads have got a couple more rooms to go into. It's still quite small, and it's there's still a lot of building work going on. There's certain rooms they can't go into, so it certainly feels we're very, very tight together. Hopefully in a few weeks that will change, and we'll feel the benefits of the work going on.